Thanks for joining us today for MasterCoaches Wednesday Weekly Buzz and our after show Buzz Reaction. I'm Ruth Nelson, joined by Hall of Famers Mick Haley, Bob Bertucci, and Brian Gimolero, bringing you the most current issues and trends in volleyball. Our weekly news show has leaders in our sport provide their perspective on the questions that are asked, along with a discussion on topics that are current and ones that are affecting all of us. Our news flash: 2021 NIA Women's Volleyball Championship. Missouri Baptist wins back-to-back and Park, Missouri takes runner-up. 2021 NCAA Division II championships. The Super 8 are Tampa, Western Washington, Washburn, Hillsdale, Cannon, West Texas A&M, Damon, and Augusta begin their quarterfinals December 9th. Final Four December 10th and 11th. For those not attending the 2021 AVCA convention in Columbus, Ohio, you can register for the virtual 2021 convention by jumping over to avcaconvention.org. Today, we will hear from two head coaches. Both of their teams were not seeded going into the NCAA championship bracket and were given a number 30 and a number 34 RPI, yet both upset either the 2020 defending champion number 7 Kentucky or the number 14 Creighton. Let's hear how they have created a team culture for taking one match at a time. But let's go first to Austin, Texas, with former Olympic coach Mick Haley, who will introduce our first guest today. Mick.
Thank you, Ruth. Our first guest is head coach Chris Tamas from the Fighting Illini, University of Illinois. Chris, welcome, and glad you could jump on here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be a part of this, and appreciate what you all do for the sport.
Well, thank you. We've got 16 teams left in the tournament, 5 from the Big Ten. Pretty interesting time for you guys. Tell me tell me the secret to getting your team to peak at the right time and come on like this at the end of the season.
Yeah, I know you guys know this well, but it's a little bit of skill, a little bit of luck, and you got to be healthy at time of play. You have to have some matches during the course of the season where you've proven you can have these big upsets, and you just have to catch the right match at the right time, and we did all those things. And so we knew we were capable of taking Kentucky down. We didn't think it would be quite as dominant as it was. We played the best volleyball I've seen us play all year, and that's what you need at this time of year.
Well, I agree. I watched that match. I was unbelievably impressed, and you guys looked like you absolutely were just attending to business. It didn't look like an upset in your minds. It just looked like execution. So was there a turning point in the season that you could put your finger on where you really felt everybody got on the same page? They started moving in the direction, coaches work all year long to get this going. Sometimes it never happens. Sometimes it happens early and you flow. But was there one time that you can remember that you could put your finger on to share with us?
I think there was a couple of times where I felt that, we had a shot at making some noise in the tournament. The first one being when we played at Purdue at the beginning of the season. I think they just achieved their highest ranking at number 4. And, that's a hostile crowd to step in front of. And we were able to beat them in 5. And we had a back-to-back with Purdue, Wisconsin. And we didn't win the other of the next 3, but we were very competitive with Wisconsin and Purdue in those matchups. And then late October, right before Halloween, we were able to go into Penn State and knock off Penn State in their home arena 3-1. And again, just kind of showed you that glimpse. After that, we had some sickness and some injury. So we didn't really get to full strength again until about a week and a half ago. And it was able to come back together as it was in those previous months. So it was just good to see that we didn't skip a beat once that lineup came back into play, and here we are.
Bob Bertucci knows how to go into Penn State and beat those guys. He had a first or second round win a number of years ago, similar to your going in, and he got his team going. Bob, do you have questions for Chris?
Yeah, Chris, first, congratulations. You're one of the Cinderella teams right now, and we're kind of rooting for you. Were you pleased with the bracket placement?
I don't pay too much attention to. I mean, obviously you're going to look at it when it rolls out. I think everyone was seeded fairly, and I know some people don't like the matchups or whatever, but if you look at purely how it was seeded and where the RPIs fell, I thought it was fairly you know, in good form. I didn't see too many outliers. I know some people might look at our bracket and say you've got the Pac-12 champ with the Big 12 champ with the, potentially would have been the SEC champ, but we're here instead. But I don't look at that as anything other than you're in the tournament. Every one of your play is tough. Especially maybe after you get after that first round, everyone's going to be a seeded team or near it, or have spent some time in the top 25. So once you're in these rounds, there's no easy match, and it's going to take our all to continue on to the next.
How about the number of teams that were given placement in the bracket?
I think it was fair too. I think you saw, a lot from the Power 5 conferences, but you're also still seeing, some good play from conferences around the country. And we always want parity in our sport. We want this to be a sport that, everyone is involved in. We want to expand it as much as possible. So the more parity we can get, the better. With that being said, we don't want to sacrifice teams that deserve to be here. Just in the name of parity. But even, look at our first round matchup where, West Virginia was one of the last matches in. They were also a very nice team. So I think the tournament was fair in its assessment of teams. And that's what I think about it.
Well, good luck in the regionals. I know Brian has a couple of questions for you, in regard to TV. So I'm going to, hand it off to him.
Thanks, Bob.
Congratulations. Wonderful year. We all love Cinderella teams, and you're it. It's hard to get out. There's only 2 of you got out of this in the top 16. Before I ask you about television, what's different for your team this year, or for you? What have you learned from the past, and how are you approaching it differently?
Yeah, when I first got here, and actually this reminds me a lot of my first year here, where we had a little bit of an unknown where, we had to replace a large portion of our roster. It was a similar setup to 2017, when we also did the same thing. We knocked off Washington at Washington to make it to the Sweet 16. And so we just kind of talked about that. I had some of my fifth year seniors were part of that group, so they had the same feeling as well. But I learned that we're just a group of competitors, and no matter who we threw on the floor this year, we always had, just that instinct where we're not letting any ball hit the floor. We're not letting any, hitter go up without, a bunch of blockers in their face. We're going to serve tough. We have to serve tough, because if any team in our conference is in system, you're going to be in trouble. So we have to make that a big staple of what we do. But building block, I think this all started back in the COVID year, where we had to turn over that big roster. We had that Final Four year in 19, we made the tournament, and then I lost 5 starters. And that's a lot of starters to replace. And so last year we had a whole new lineup, and they just got a lot of reps together, and it wasn't always pretty, but we kept improving as time went on, and that led to a good end of the year run back in the end of the COVID season, and then on to this one. And so I just felt like it was a continuation from that.
That 2019 team was quite a team, and I just wondered how you mentally change, and see it differently, and I'm impressed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I just say I look at every team. Every team's going to be different. You guys know as well as anyone. One player leaves, it changes the makeup completely. So you always have to reformulate and everything else. But they really have to understand that team concept, and they've definitely done that.
Yeah, a pet peeve of mine is, if we're going to really expand our sport, our TV coverage needs to be better. That's my premise. The volleyball people can figure out a way to find you playing, but the normal public, which we need to have, it's difficult to find the matches on television. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I'm with you. The more coverage that we can get, the better it's going to be for everyone. And I thought the national team did tremendously to help expansion of our sport. I know AU Sports is doing a great job trying to get a pro league in the US. Club participation is at an all-time high, but like you mentioned, we need viewership to kind of latch on to maybe just some bigger fish, so to speak. You need that sponsorship. I'm old enough to be in the growing up when there was the heyday of the AVP. I grew up in Santa Barbara, so you know, I was able to go down to those matchups, and it used to be huge, and it all was based on the TV coverage and sponsorship and making it an exciting event. And I think our sport is as exciting as any sport out there, men's or women's. And so I'm with you guys. I think it's really important that we get a lot of coverage, a lot of good coverage that you can get more eyes on, not some of this. The streaming is great too, don't get me wrong, because we're going to live in the age of streaming, but the more we can get into general households and kind of show how great our sport is, I definitely agree with that.
You know, Ruth has had such experience on all levels of this sport, so I'm going to turn it over to her.
Sure.
Okay, so we're almost through with the super seniors, but now we're jumping to the super portal. It seems like all the coaches can find the matches and all the players can find the portal. So I'm going to ask you, has the portal proved to be positive or negative for the team? And has it assisted you in your team's position in this tournament? And
We've had about one player every year that's come from the portal, and you know, we're always going to be looking. I think every coach is always going to be looking. I think the interesting part is that you're going to see now is that you're seeing this super senior, you're seeing the COVID year is going to come into play. So maybe someone's played for a year and was a couple, you know, 2-time All-American, and they're looking for a change of scenery, or they're looking for a specific grad program, or they're looking to challenge themselves at a different level, or they want to come back home. So I think you're still going to see a lot of spread, and you have to either go with the recruits that you recruited, or you have to you know, give your super senior another year, or senior another year to have her be a super senior. So I think the portal is going to be huge in the next couple of years. It hasn't quite been as huge as maybe football or basketball, but we're creeping there. And I'm a big fan of loyalty too, don't get me wrong, but you know, I think it's just going to become, it's a sign of the times, and it's going to have to be a part of our recruiting strategy.
Okay, so Chris, thanks for making time for us, and we look forward to watching your match against number 10 Nebraska Thursday at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on ESPNU, and we hope that all our viewers can be there. And we're getting ready to come on our next guest, and thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Good luck, Chris.
Thank you.
See you in Austin.
All right, now let's bring on our next guest. And Mick, you have the pleasure of introducing this young man.
Wow, Ray, you get called a young man, and I've not had that happen in a long time. Our next guest, and it's a real pleasure to have the head coach of the University of Kansas Jayhawks, Ray Bechard, on. Ray is getting in a habit of doing this. He's knocking people off at the last minute, keeps moving through the tournament. I think I was his last victim in San Diego a few years ago, and he's done a wonderful, wonderful job with his team. Ray, how are you?
Doing good. How's everybody today?
Well, we're having a great time. We get to talk to all these coaches. We don't have to worry about preparation or any of this stuff. Travel's not there, but this is a fun time. You know, you guys got a lot of teams in the tournament, and there's 3 of you left, and there's 16 total. At what point in the season did you feel like you had a chance to do this?
Well, we felt like the league could be well represented in the tournament, the way things kind of developed. We had our back against the wall a little bit about halfway through the Big 12 conference race, and I think some of our young kids kind of hit the wall a little bit. And we had a couple breaks where we could give them a little time off to refresh. We went to a one-setter system with a young freshman who has done a great job, and I think that kind of kickstarted us to make a good run down the stretch. So the back-to-back, you know, this year with COVID last year, we did back-to-back Big 12 matches, and we did it again this year. And it's a little bit of a challenge to create a situation on back-to-back nights, just from a game plan and a strategical standpoint. But our team started to handle that better later in the Big 12 schedule.
You know, is there a secret to getting your team to crescendo at the end and play their best volleyball, or is there just one point in the season that you can identify was the turning point and caused this to happen?
Yeah, I think they came to work every day wanting to get better. And we had, anytime you have 3 or 4 first-year players playing in a good league, it takes a little time, I think, to develop that competitive confidence. And that as we went through the Big 12 season, we took Texas 5 fairly early. And I think we weren't able to do that on back-to-back nights, but I think that gave us an indication of where we could be if we could start playing a little better, a little bit longer. And with this young team, I think that's basically what happened, Mick. We started playing a little bit better, a little bit longer. So instead of playing pretty well for 45 minutes or an hour, we could stretch that into maybe an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes to get a result against a really good team.
Well, that's pretty interesting, but it's exciting to see the Jayhawks back in the 16 and going after it. Bob Bertucci has coached at Tennessee and at Temple and Lehigh and taken a men's team to the Final Four. Bob, what do you want to ask Ray about?
First, I want to just tell Ray it's good to see him again. I haven't seen him in a while since he came and played us out at Temple. So it's good to see him.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Yep.
Again, congratulations on doing such a good job so far this season.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, one of my questions, Ray, is how do you feel about the bracket placement and the number of teams that were given placement in the bracket?
Yeah, from our league, I mean, we had 7 out of the 9, which is an all-time high for us. We would have loved to see a few more advance, but we got 3 through. I know Tech, they had a 2-0 lead and had a chance, and Florida Gulf Coast kind of turned the tables on them. But Iowa State and Stanford, Florida State, K-State, West Virginia, Illinois, Illinois is playing very well. So there were a lot of really interesting, intriguing matchups for our league. I'm excited about Texas. I'm excited about Baylor. And obviously, I'm not sure how many brackets had us playing in the round of 16, but we're pretty thrilled to be part of that group. So I think from a Big 12 perspective, we really were treated very fairly. And I'm hoping that we can win some more matches for the league and what we're trying to do as a league.
Well, what do you think you have to do to win the regionals and get a berth in the Final Four?
Well, we had to play Creighton at Creighton. That was great. Now we get to play Pitt at Pitt. So,
So being able to play on the road is pretty important, huh?
yeah, Mick, the reward we got for beating USC was going to Omaha to play Nebraska. So that was a neutral court. But no, it comes down to, I told the team on Monday when we got in the gym, I said, everybody in the country right now is doing 2 things. They're passing and serving. And, we can throw all these, we can figure out, what Pitt's going to do in their 6-2 or who's going to play and where and all that kind of thing. But their first contact's excellent. And if we want to be in the match, those are 2 things we'll have to do at a high level. And we've been pretty efficient the last couple of weekends at that. So hopefully that can carry through.
Well, Ray, Brian has done a lot with TV, worked with ESPN for a while, and we've chatted a little bit. I know he has some questions for you, in regard to the coverage that the tournament has been getting. So I'm going to let Brian ask some of those questions of you.
Well, congratulations, Ray. Mick, I'm glad you lost.
Hey, what are you saying? You're glad I lost?
Well, because I thought I was the last top team to lose to Ray, so I'm glad. I'm glad it was you since then.
Oh, wow.
I believe too that what you said was fascinating about first contact. I believe whoever controls the first contact always wins. It's the first contact of the game. Tell me about your team's first contact ability.
Yeah, I would say it's developed over the season. We have a freshman 6 rotation player in Caroline Bean who is a really, really good player, but that's a lot to ask for a freshman kid at this level, obviously, to manage all that. And she's done a great job. And then a grad transfer, Genny Moser, same way. So we got those 2 kids we depend on a bunch. So they've been they've been pretty steady, and our libero's been solid. So we would always, Brian, like to see that number be a little bit higher. But I think what has developed a little bit is our serving has been a little bit spot on with what zones we're trying to identify. We're trying to change levels more. I think that's a big thing in the college game now. People are changing levels a bunch. And I think we're getting a little bit more up to speed on that. So we're excited about that. But as we went through the middle of the season and we did struggle a little bit, we could go back to, as you mentioned, first contact's got to be at a high level for us to be competitive this weekend.
I asked Chris at Illinois, and I asked you the same question. I'm really concerned as a volleyball person and how great our sport is, and certainly our product, the women that we coach. But the television coverage is just frighteningly poor compared to most. Men's basketball, women's basketball, and women's volleyball have the highest percentage of any sport in the NCAA in terms of participation, and we get the least amount of coverage. That's a pet peeve of mine. Do you have any comments about that?
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. And I think there's so much opportunity here. And you know this, Brian, you can't find another sport that's got the level of grace and strength and for females to identify with and for. And I just think I think our game's at its all-time best at all levels. And I think it's a extremely marketable, attractive product. And if it's presented the right way. And I think we could capture a whole new market of folks that maybe don't understand the sport that well, would be captured by how it's played with the finesse and the grace and this. And in basketball, they talk about, hey, they met at the slam dunk, met at the rim, all this. We have a confrontation every rally in volleyball, but in a way that is really artful, I think, and graceful at the same time. So, it's frustrating. But I think if we continue to do our due diligence and you folks get the word out like you do, hopefully we can make some progress in that area.
Yeah, it's kind of, to me, it's like orchestrated ballet played very powerfully, and I think that it has all the ingredients that an American public would really enjoy if they could see it more. The only concern I have with what you said is volleyball is at an all-time high. I mean, we can't talk about the old days anymore being so good.
Hey, some of those Long Beach teams were a joy to watch, I'm telling you.
Well, thank you. Ruth has coached at all levels and with everybody, and she's going to ask the best questions.
All right.
The best questions. I'm going to leave that one for just 1 minute, so we don't spend a lot of time on that one. But the one I'm most interested. So you mentioned something that we needed to keep getting the word out. How much do you think of an effect we're having as master coaches, getting topics and issues and trends out there? Because we don't get a lot of comments or feedback on our Facebook Live show.
Well, people are tuning in because I've talked to people. So we need to get people responding to that and spreading the word, because this medium right here, this opportunity right here certainly educates, elevates our game, and creates an awareness around our sport. So I applaud all of you for doing that. Okay,
so now I'm not going to give you the stats of the super portal, because I'm calling it super portal because the super seniors are gone now, super portal. But I would like you to let me know, what is your thoughts? Is it positive or negative? And how has it affected your team?
Well, we've got a couple transfers on our team. I'm a little frustrated with the transfer portal, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I think it makes life pretty easy for a kid that gets maybe just a little uncomfortable. And maybe that's old school coming out in me just a little bit. But I think we all make commitments, and we should try to create some stability around those commitments. Mm-hmm. But there might be a situation at a graduate level. We have a graduate transfer on our team, Genny Moser, who social work, we have one of the top social work graduate level programs in the country. So it made sense for her to finish her volleyball career at Kansas.
Right.
Maybe Nesh Szabo at Nebraska, she's got Jazz Sweet in front of her. She's not going to play the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Maybe those opportunities there. But when it's just a situation, the coach is being a little tough on me, or there's a lot of different things that I think we could legislate that transfer portal a little bit better. But I think the NCAA is just kind of throwing up their hands as of late and saying, hey, whatever goes, goes.
Okay, that's good enough. We're going to stop you right there, Ray. Thanks for making time for us today. And we look forward to watching your match against number 3, Pittsburgh, Thursday, 12 noon Central Standard Time on ESPNU. And we appreciate you coming on today.
Hey, appreciate all you guys are doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Good luck.
Good luck, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you.
Missed one of our shows? Jump over to Instagram and click on our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Volleyball Master Coaches, Instagram and Twitter, VB Master Coaches. Want to make a difference? Please remember to renew your AVCA membership. This one organization that represents all coaches at all levels when lobbying for changes that are needed in our sport. And you can make a difference by registering at avca.org. We now close out today's Buzz, and please stay on for Buzz Reaction as Master Coaches will continue a short discussion looking closely at who can and who cannot win based on the numbers. We will also have 2 coaches join us to talk about their teams and how they prepared for the postseason tournament. Special thanks to our Buzz and Buzz Reaction digital partner, Dr. John Foreman, for being part of our show and being an influencer for our sport. For those joining us for Buzz Reaction for the first time today, Master Coaches will provide a short, and I say short, recap on the discussion and their thoughts on how statistics have showed a different approach to selecting teams and their outcome. We will then jump to our 2 guests who will be listening to our short recap, who will provide us their thoughts on their season and their postseason play. All right, Master Coaches, here we go on our short recap.
Listen,
Serving and passing, Ray said it, Mick.
I'm taller than those other 2, so I can't be that short. Come on.
All right, here you go. Here's the topics.
Well, let's throw this out real quick. No place in our selection or our bracket presentation do we put statistical results in the formula to select these teams. Several of us have come across 2 statistical pieces of data that we think help identify the winners, and we're willing to put that out there. At least I'm willing to put that out there this year. One is points scored per set, and the other is the differential of your hitting percentage for the season and your opponent's hitting percentage of the season. That one has a little bit of a problem with what conference you played in, but it's still a significant factor in like competition. So we put together, at least I put together two lists here. One is points per set, the highest being Ohio State at 18.7. Last year, Kentucky won with 19.2 kills per set, just to give you an idea. And those go down the list. You see Ohio State being first, Texas second, Wisconsin third, Creighton fourth, etc. The differentials show BYU and Western Kentucky to be first, but knowing that their conferences were not quite as strong, we put an asterisk by them right now, not knowing how really important that is for them. But when you take Power 5 conferences, Texas is third at 152. Wisconsin is right there with them at 160. Louisville at 160. So we think those have something to do with determining who might win the tournament.
Okay.
Yeah, and let me react to the point differential here. Western Kentucky is very difficult because their schedule is too weak. There's not enough matches that allow them for us to compare to get that. But BYU, the only concern I have with BYU is their big wins were at home. But I think Texas and Wisconsin and Louisville are certainly top contenders with all the things. I just like to see the committee choose by adopting the men's basketball formula. I think they need to take into consideration home and away. I think they need to look more, do a deeper statistical analysis, and that's my position.
Bob.
Well, I think we'll have Mick introduce our guests, and then I'll tell
Oh,
you
no,
what I
no,
think
no.
is the most
Wait.
important thing.
We're not ready yet. Mick,
Bob, you
go
got
ahead.
shut down real quick. You
Yes.
no chance.
No. We are, Mick, go ahead.
Well, I think the final part of this is I've been willing to go online, and I want to see, I'm going to put it out there. I think that there are basically 5 teams that can win the championship based on the numbers. And I would say Texas comes in first, Wisconsin second, BYU third, Louisville fourth, and Ohio State. I think those are the only 5 teams that have a chance to really win the tournament. The people that can't win are determined by taking those numbers and looking at the differentials. And none of the other teams, Pitt, Baylor, Purdue, Nebraska, Washington, Minnesota, Florida, or UCLA, and Florida is an exception, none of them score 18 or more points per set. That's a problem. You have to score the ball, or you have to rely on the other team's errors. And that's a big problem. Florida's got the asterisk because they score 18.2, but their differential is so low, 0.095, that the other teams are playing so close to them that would indicate their defense or their error component is too high. And so that's why I put it up there. 5 teams, Texas, Wisconsin, BYU, Louisville, or Ohio State. Those are going to be, one of those teams will be the winner of the tournament.
My contention is that the only thing that makes a difference here is because the regionals are home courts. So, my answer of this group is I like the top 4, but I also like Pitt. Pitt being at home, Pitt being at home gives them, a true advantage, very good team at home. So it's hard. It's BYU being on the road here is the one difficult one, but Texas, Wisconsin, and Louisville are in pretty good positions for not only the scores mathematically, but also having the home courts.
Ohio State scoring 18.7 points per set, though, playing at Louisville, that might be a roll of the dice.
Yeah, I think the teams that can win are the teams that have a variety of ways they can win. And the teams that can lose have a variety of ways they can lose. There's weaknesses that can be exploited, and over this many matches, those weaknesses will be exploited.
Okay, how about the TV coverage that we just were talking about?
Well, I'll jump into that. Nike really wants everybody to wear basketball shoes that plays basketball, but that's not how they make money. They make money by selling Nike shoes to the general public. And the only way we can get the general public involved is we in this group can find the matches on television, but they should be a national broadcast if we're going to expand our audience. We need to get the general population looking at our game. Softball has done it. Women's basketball has done it. The other sports that are always on TV have done it. We need to do it too. We need to be able to get the general public easy access to our game.
Okay. All right. So let me just briefly talk about the little test I did on Twitter with my schedule. So 3 days ago, I posted a pretty schedule, that looked really nice with almost all the teams playing. Within one day, we had 6,500 views. 6,500 people wanting to know who was playing who and where. And that wasn't just in this country, it was in other countries. They're wanting to know, even though they might not be able to see it. Okay, so then I thought, you know what? What is this? That people will go and view this, and we're getting more views because of the knowledge and the information we're providing all of our viewers. I decided to post another one. Well, I posted another one that wasn't as pretty, but we still had 3,400 views. So obviously people want to know who's playing who and where are they playing. So Brian, it alludes to what you were talking about on TV coverage. So everybody is looking to see where to go. So it's pretty easy this week, right? So we know if we look at the chart here, we are playing, guess what? Every match is on ESPNU except Kansas versus Pitt, and they're on ESPN Plus. And number 9, Ohio State against number 8, Georgia Tech, is playing on ESPN Plus. Now, I've been on ESPN Plus for 3 days. Now I got to figure out how to get ESPNU when I don't have it on my TV. So anyhow.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
exactly the problem right there.
All right, Mick, let's introduce our 2 next guests that we have.
Well, I'm really excited to bring our next guests on. I have taken a lot of personal time watching both of these women coach, and they have done a great job. I qualify them as program builders. Beth Launiere, the head coach at the University of Utah, has been there for 32 years, and she's been building that program from the ground up, facilities, athletes, community support, the whole works. She's done a wonderful job. She's originally graduated from Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan. She was an assistant coach at Ferris State. Most of you don't know that unless you're Michigan people, and the University of Illinois, before going to Utah and taking over that program and starting to build it. She's been in at least 2 different conferences and is challenged in both of those. She had a team this year that was 3rd in the Pac-12, beat Nebraska at home, at Nebraska's home after being down 2-0. Her players are more than solid. She lost one of her key players, brought another player in, Maddie Robinson, and she developed into a comparable left side attacker with Danny Drews. Her team was wonderful, and she did a wonderful job. Genny, Beth. I'm glad you're on.
Thank you.
Yeah, and also our second guest, Genny Volpe. Genny, I've watched for a number of years. She has taken the Rice Owls out of nowhere and made them a powerhouse in women's volleyball. Played in the Conference USA. She goes nose to nose every year with Western Kentucky. She'll get on top of them pretty soon. She'll either go over there and hit Travis in the knee or something and have him get down. She'll figure out how to beat him. But she was an outstanding player. Played at Texas A&M. Was an assistant coach for a number of programs. SMU, back at A&M, even assisted at Rice before she got the head job. She's been there in her 18th season, believe that or not, Genny. I wouldn't have never guessed 18. I thought 17 at any one school was long enough for me, but 18 years. And her team, I saw her beat Texas last spring. Watched her team compete at Texas as I watched Beth's team compete at BYU and lose in the second round of the tournament. But wonderful preparation by both coaches, absolutely intense focus by the athletes. If I were to evaluate like officials get evaluated, and I'm watching coaches, both coaches really knew what they needed to do. Genny, congratulations and thanks for coming on. Really appreciate both of you guys being on.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so let me just throw a winger at you right from the start, and either one of you can grab this fast. you witnessed our little discussion on performance data, points per set and differential. Do either of you think that criteria could or should be included in either the selection process or the placement on the bracket process? And don't
I'll
all
go
jump
ahead.
at once.
I'll go ahead. I think anything they can use to get it right, which should be used. And Mick, definitely with you and all of you in the value of these statistics in terms of, trying to figure out who's going to win. And those are two stats that we look at all the time on if we can compete, how do we match up against an opponent? We're looking at those numbers all the time. And so if we're doing it in our preparation and understanding of where our team is, it certainly could be something that would be of value, I think, to the committee. Do we know that they don't look at statistics, or do you think that they might look at statistics? I guess is a question I have, Mick.
Oh,
Maybe.
Mick, you're getting a question.
Well, I think that they have not indicated that they use that as an analysis. They print their criteria for selection, and nowhere in their printed criteria is the mention of performance-based, your body of work for the season. Genny, how do you feel about that?
Well, I'm with Beth on that. I think any kind of data you can use to helping your decision process would benefit the student athletes. It would benefit the programs. And I think point scoring is definitely a big one, and point differential, that all makes sense. And at least being a tool to help them. And it's subjective and all when they come down to making some of those decisions, I'm sure. But I know that they would probably want to use as much information as they could get, because they want to get it right too.
See, this is easy information to get because it's on the base of your year-end statistics, and you all have websites. Your people add up the stats; they come right out. You can click on any website and get this information this quick. You can take kills per set, blocks per set, and aces per set, and you can have points scored just like that. And in fact, many of the websites now are talking about points per set. So that's an important thing. Both of you are knocked out of the tournament at this point, and I think we would like to know about the student experience from each of your teams. Maybe you can start, Genny, but what kind of a experience did your athletes have participating in the tournament this year? And can you just share that with us?
Sure. I mean, my team really did love their experience. I think that they're always appreciative of getting the opportunity to represent Rice on the big stage. And for this year, Texas put on a great event. They do a really nice job. They did bring in an enormous crowd. And so although it wasn't in our favor, I think the general experience was good. Just speaking to, players like Nicole Lennon, who has been to the NCAAs for 4 years in a row, then she was able to compete in 3 of them. And twice it was at Texas and once it was at Texas A&M. So we've driven to every NCAA tournament we have been to. And, it is, I think they had a great experience in general. I think that it would enhance the student athlete experience to be able to have a little bit of a variation on where we are sent for the postseason though.
I got to sit right in the middle of the Rice band, so I really got to enjoy that part. But Beth, you had to go down to BYU twice this year and play. The first time was absolutely something I'd never seen on TV before. The second time I only got to see the first part, but you came out smoking. Well, what kind of experience was that for your kids?
In some ways similar to Jenny's, what she talked about, that Texas and BYU, their fan venues and their fan interaction is really second to none. I mean, there's very few venues in the country that, you know, have the fans right on top of you and they're as passionate as they are at those two schools. And BYU does a great job, and they feed off of that. And so when we get to match time, the student athletes are excited to play in the NCAA tournament. There's no question about that. And you do feel it, you know, you feel it different. And, you know, we knew we needed to come out and take a punch right off the bat because it's such a tough place to play. But we've been 5 out of 6 years sent to BYU, not counting Omaha last year. We were able to, you know, go down and win in 2019. That was great. But my athlete, so Danny Drews we hosted in 2017. We beat Purdue in the second round at home. But Danny Drews' other 4 years have been at BYU, or the 3 years, not counting Omaha, and our players. So, you know, the honest answer is there's almost groans when the bracket comes out. Like, oh, we're doing that again. And not to fault my players at all. We all felt the same way. We knew exactly what the bracket was going to look like for us. There was no excitement, no anticipation. And I think that's part of the student athlete experience, right? Is sitting in front of the TV and with the bracket coming up and the excitement of where you're going and who you're playing and what you're doing. And it's also nice to play teams that you don't know so well. I mean, you know, we played every team that was in our quad. And so, you know, and it took a little bit of messaging and kind of discussion from my athletes about, you know, we got to let that go. We got to, you know, we knew it was going to be like this. And slowly as the week went on, we definitely got excited. But I think from an overall student athlete experience, I think that the 400-mile rule is very, very limiting to the committee in trying to put a bracket together. And maybe you'll ask another question about that, but
Yeah,
to
Bob
me,
Bob Bertucci was going to get into that with you. Bob, are you with us?
Yeah,
yeah, I
he's
am.
waiting.
Yeah. Maybe you could.
As
Maybe
long as
you
it's okay
could.
with Ruth, I might ask a question now.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Bob, it's your turn. We just got to get Mick to quit talking. All right, Bob.
You know, actually, Mick did start to address some of the things. You know, in selection, I think we really should have the committee looking at some of this, you know, statistical data. I mean, both of those items that the points per set and the differential that was mentioned, one has, you know, John Foreman had checked out the reliability of those statistics at determining who's going to win. And they range between 75 to, you know, 85% in both cases, much better than the RPI. That's for the selection. But, you know, when you look at who's going to win, who's not going to win, I think more important is who's got the home court. And you guys have just started addressing that home court advantage. I mean, I don't think we're at the point right now with women's volleyball, probably because the television coverage isn't at all close to what women's basketball gets, that we could go to neutral sites. But that home court advantage is huge. And that 400-mile rule doesn't make a lot of sense to me because, you know, I'm coaching Sacred Heart and they had a great experience. Every year they have a great experience. They get to fly on and take a long trip, you know, to Texas, which they would never go in the regular season. All right. But how about you guys that keep going to the same place every year, 3 or 4 years in a row? So Beth, you want to address that a little bit more?
Yeah, I think there's solutions that need to be talked about, brought forth. This has to do with student athlete experience. It has nothing to do with, you know, equitable competition because, you know, we could be sent someplace just as strong as a team like BYU, but it would be a different experience. And so my issue is, you know, and it has nothing to do with the committee, to be honest with you. We've all been in committee and done committee work and been in those rooms and how difficult that job is and that task is to try to put a bracket together and try to put seeding together. And they're very hamstrung by the rules that are given to them from the championship committee of the NCAA, including this 400-mile rule. And so, they have to get it down to the minimum amount of flights possible. This year, that was 18 flights. My contention is that we aren't going to see, they're not going to see the entire tournament for us right now. It's going to be too expensive. They're not doing it for other sports other than basketball. And Mike Hebert told me a long time ago not to compare, volleyball to basketball. We're not going to get very far sometimes. But if they could seed, if they could, have some exceptions, you can't go to the same location in the third year, after 2 years. That's a simple, small exemption that maybe might not even cost another flight, depending on how the bracket works out. Take the 400-mile rule out of it and let the committee creatively find a way to make a more exciting bracket. Maybe it's going to take a few more than 18 flights, but I don't think it's going, with my looking at the bracket, I don't think it would have taken, a ton more flights. And I do think our sport is at a point where we deserve to, get more, opportunity to have some flexibility in this based on our attendance across the country and at our national championships. So, can they seed 1 through 32 instead of 1 through 16? Does that give us more flexibility can they take a 2 seed from this region and flip them with a 2 seed from that region? So, we're not changing that. We're just changing, locations. But 1 through 16, the 17th, 18th, 19th team, depending on if they're close within 400 miles, is going to play a seeded team. And it gets tough. So I think this is, for me, the conversation is, let's have the conversation. Let's get it out there. Let's look for creative solutions to this issue. And there seems to be some simple solutions, but it's got to come from the NCAA. It's not the committee, and I think we all know that. There's rules in place that I would like to see changed for the student athlete experience.
Well, Beth, I tell you, Brian is probably the best person to talk about this point because he's been stuck for how many years, Brian? Has this happened to you?
28.
He lies.
28 times we stayed. Look, Beth, we are really short of time. Genny, we want to make sure you get your voice here, but we're really short on time. You said it, Beth. 18 teams traveled. That is seeding. If you're flying 18 teams, you're seeding 18 teams. And with there's a rule the public should know that in the first or second round, the same conference can't play each other.
Right.
Okay, so that's a rule that can help. But that means with few schools in the West, Western teams are going to travel anyway. With the majority of schools in the East, Eastern teams are going to travel anyway. Like Bob said about his own school, it is going to happen. 18 flights could be 18 seeds. It wouldn't make any difference. I have one recommendation, and that is, like the NCAA, the committee got the rule about non-conference playing in the first 2 rounds, same conference in the first 2 rounds. Then maybe we should say that the schools can't go to the same school more than 1 year in a row. And there's no such word as in a row one time, but they can't repeat. They can't go back to the same school. And I think that would end up, in essence, maybe getting rid of the problem both of you have. I knew you were going to BYU. Genny, I knew you were going to Texas. We all knew it. The players knew it. Genny, any response to this? I'm sorry to be so quick, but we're no time.
Yeah, that's okay. I just think the obvious is that we try to play those teams in non-conference anyways. So most of the time we're playing those teams to try to work and earn RPI points. And yet in the end, we end up playing them at their place in the most important tournament of the year when you're trying to, do something special. So yeah, for programs that you want to advance to the Sweet 16 and your program's never done it before, in our case, we're having to beat a top 5 program that's been in the top 5 for 15 years in a row, except for 1 year. So challenging.
When we preach about fairness to our players all the time, then everybody involved in the sport should work on being fair. And you guys deserve, both of your teams I saw play, and you both deserved a better fate, a more fair fate. Going to Ruth.
Okay. All right, Beth and Genny. I'm not going to even ask my question because we're out of time, but this to me is probably more important than any question I could ask you. Beth and Genny, thanks for representing women in coaching. Thanks how both of you are always being professional in your approach to the program, respectful to officials, to players, and always dressing professional and becoming role models for young coaches. And to me, that's more important than any other question I've answered and asked in 81 weeks. So, well, our time is up. And thanks for joining us today for the Buzz Reaction, you two.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Genny.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
A very special shout out to over 125 guests who have shared their insights with us and our viewers over the past 81 weeks. For those coaches that are interested in consulting services, please go directly to our website, www.volleyballmastercoaches.com, and click on the contact form. If you're in Dallas in May or you're in Abilene, Texas in June, join us for our Volleyball Master Coaches clinics. Don't forget to take advantage of our Master Coaches Stream 18 full-length on-demand video series by heading over to our Instagram. 2021 AVCA Virtual Convention. You must jump over to avcaconvention.org to register today. Be sure to tell your friends about our weekly news show, and don't forget to send in your questions or your feedback from our Buzz or Buzz Reaction. Thanks for joining us today. Have a happy holiday season, and we will see you next month on the Buzz, unless I can talk to these guys into doing another show.